Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the 2017 Latin American Business Conference, Latin America, From Uncertainty to Opportunity. I'm Patricio Avalos, a second-year full-time MBA candidate at the UCLA Anderson School of Management. I'm from Chile, and I'm the co-president of the Latin American Business Association, known as LABA. The organizing committee of today's conference is comprised of members of LABA's leadership committee, members of the UCLA's Latino Business Student Association, known as LBSA, the UCLA Anderson Center for Global Management, led by Lucy Allard, and the Los Angeles Chamber of Commerce, who have worked hard all together to bring this conference to you. And we're delighted and proud to have everyone join us here today. We do hope that you will enjoy this conference and take time to learn from the influential private and public sector leaders who are gathered here today from various industries and disciplines who invest and conduct business in and with the Latin American region. Our guest speakers will provide important insights of Latin America's business and economic environment, and will consider what is to come as Latin America considers its future and returns to stronger economic growth, diversified its industries, and exports beyond commodities, stimulates innovation and entrepreneurship, leverages trade integration, and continues in its social transformation and takes advantage of the opportunities that a bright future offers to the region.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Bernardo Velasco, and I am from Mexico. I am a second-year full-time MBA candidate at UCLA Anderson, and the student director for this year's Latin American Business Conference. I am delighted to welcome everyone here today, our distinguished speakers, our faculty, students, alumni, sponsors, the Los Angeles business community, and special guests and friends. I would like to extend a special thank you to all of our guest speakers, some of whom have traveled long distances to join us today, and to our conference sponsors. In particular, I want to recognize Lucy Allard and her team at the Center for Global Management, who have played a crucial role in organizing this conference, and to Mr. Carlos Valderrama of the Los Angeles Chamber of Commerce. We are delighted to be hosting this year's conference in partnership with the Los Angeles Chamber of Commerce. Thank you very much for your support. I would also like to extend a special thank you note to the LABA and LBSA members for the dedication and commitment to this conference. To open in this morning's session, I would like to introduce Sebastian Edwards, distinguished professor and Henry Ford Second Chair in International Management at UCLA Anderson, and faculty director for the Center for Global Management. Professor Edwards will provide a macroeconomic overview of Latin America, and will be moderating this afternoon's conversation with our keynote speaker, Álvaro Uribe Vélez, the former president of Colombia. From 1993 until 1996, Professor Edwards was the chief economist for the Latin American and Caribbean region of the World Bank, and is author of more than 200 scientific articles on international economics, macroeconomics, and economic development. Please join me in thanking and welcoming Professor Sebastian Edwards.
Thank you, Bernardo. Thank you, Patricio. It's a great opportunity to be back here once again. Every year, I think that the conference cannot get any better, and the students surprise us, and it does get better. Someday we will peak, and then it will be downhill from then on. But that's not that. This year it was amazing how it has improved. We teach our students that most functions in management move in a way where at some point they peak, and we try to find that optimal pricing, optimal advertisement expenditure. This conference has not peaked, and that makes me very happy. So congratulations to the organizing committee. The conference is called the Latin American Business Conference. I always get it wrong, and Lucy Allard, who is our leader, told me, don't worry, the name of the conference is going to be on the screen. And I said, well, then I would have to speak with my back to the audience. And she said, well, you can do that, I'm sure. So let me talk a little bit about Latin America. And I'm supposed to give a macroeconomic overview, which I will not do. And I will not do it for a number of reasons, but the most important one is that we talked to President Álvaro Uribe yesterday, or I talked to, Patricio has been talking to him and to his office for quite some time now. So I told him, Álvaro, Presidente, what are you going to do tomorrow? And he said, I'm going to give a macroeconomic picture of the world, of Latin America. And I didn't tell him anything. I thought to myself, damn, I have to do something else, because then the students are going to, or the audience, they're going to compare the two presentations, and they are going to decide that I should be president of Colombia. Which, I love Colombia, but I really, really, really don't want to be president of Colombia. I like it here. I like working with my UCLA students. So what I want to do is talk a little bit about Latin America and where the region stands today, and to put that in a context with respect to the conference. So if I think about Latin America, after having lived outside of the region for more than 2/3 of my life, I was born in Latin America, but I left when I was very young. And I am back all the time, sometimes to my country of origin, sometimes to other countries. And I give talks and I do consulting work with Latin American companies and so on. But I haven't lived there for from way before most of you were born, in fact. But when I think about Latin America, I think about a large, vibrant, diverse, creative, promising region. And yet, and let's be frank here, it is the forgotten part of the world, in some way. So I was watching the movie Arrival last night, not last night, 2 nights ago. And if you haven't watched it, I recommend you, and it's very apropos of today's conference, because we're going to have an extremely interesting session on the movie industry, entertainment, and creativity, and the role that Latin America is playing in that particular industry. So I'm watching Arrival, and as I said, if you haven't seen it yet, I recommend it. And part of the main storyline is that there are 12 gigantic out-of-space ships that come to Earth. And we, humans, try to communicate with these out-of-space creatures. And the whole movie is about language and linguistics and so on and so forth. Now, out of the 12 ships, the aliens, in all their wisdom, decide that only one of them is going to land in Latin America. And of all places, I'm sorry, friends from Venezuela, of all places, they choose Caracas, where there's nothing in the supermarket. So we knew if instead of linguists, they had used economists or graduates from the Anderson school in that movie, if one of the characters would have been an economist. One of the conclusions to start with is these guys don't need to eat anything or to drink anything, because supermarkets in Caracas are empty. So you don't want to go to Caracas if you need to go into a supermarket. But the fact that there are the ships land in China, the movie mostly takes place in Montana, here in the US. But they are communicating the experts across regions, and we get glimpses of Caracas. And the one place where people riot is in Caracas, in the movie, by the way. So I am disappointed time and time again by the short-sightedness of the media and of some people, not all, some people in the business community, that they don't focus enough on Latin America, which is a fantastic region with amazing potential. as all of you know. And what we're going to do in this conference is talk about that potential in this in various industries, but in particular in the entertainment industry. So last year, when I gave these introductory remarks, I talked about some of the contributions to the sciences, to the arts, and so on, by Latin American individuals through time. And I'd like to go back to that particular issue again. 2 days ago, the most famous prize in architecture was announced, and it was given to a very creative and small architectural firm, not from Latin America, but from our cousins from Catalonia, from the Catalan region in Spain, the RCR architectural firm. So our cousins get the prize. RCR is Rafael, Carmen, and Ramon, the three main partners. But the year before, so if this conference had been just last Friday instead of today, I would have said the last Pritzker went to a Latin American architect. So Alejandro Aravena from Chile. And you start thinking, well, it's an area which we don't usually relate or associate with Latin America, but the world of architecture, which is another area of an incredibly demanding creative juices, has a domination from Latin America. Cesar Pelli, who, as you know, designed here the Blue Whale, the Pacific Design Center, was the dean at the Yale School of Architecture. Violi, the Uruguayan architect. So the contributions are many, and they go beyond architecture, and they go into if you look in this country, the sciences, anything, you will find the contribution of people from Latin America. One of the things that we are doing now, we are taping the conference, and we are going to have it on our website. And here at UCLA Anderson, one of the things that we're doing is working very hard and on the frontier in terms of hybrid teaching and online teaching. But perhaps the institution that has done the most for online teaching is the MIT, the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. Not a bad institution. It's okay, right? Now, who runs the MIT and who has been pushing for this? Well, a fellow called Rafael Rive, an electrical engineer from Venezuela. Okay, so, and you go on, here at UCLA, we have our own Marcelo Suarez Orozco, the dean of the School of Education. So you go anywhere and you have the contributions of our people. And I think that that's very important, and I want to contrast that with the fact that we don't get a lot of news from Latin America in a direct way. Or maybe we do. People are still discussing the potential, now it looks to be failed, although I may be a few hours out of fashion, merger or possible merger or takeover of Kraft Heinz taking over Unilever. If that merger happens, it would be the third largest merger in the history of the world. Who is behind this attempt to do this amazing billions and billions of dollars in market cap? Well, it's a Brazilian investment company. It's Jorge Paulo Lemann and his 3G Capital Management. So it's Brazil. And no one seems to know or emphasize the fact that we have some of the most, as I said, vibrant and dynamic aspects of business and creativity in the region. As I watched the Academy Awards, as all of you, I was quite amazed, of course, by Warren Beatty's hesitation in reading the winner of they don't like the word winner, but anyway, the word winner of the best movie. But what And that I will remember, and all of us will remember for a long time as being a sort of amazing, funny moment. But what stays with me was Gael Garcia Bernal when he presented one of the awards. The dignity, the elegance, the eloquence without needing to scream. He's a good hombre, a good hombre. And Salma Hayek, a good mujer. And they stay with me. And if we look at the awards, one of the movies that was nominated, they didn't get any of the awards, but was nominated in 3 categories, was the film Jackie, about Jackie Kennedy. And if you haven't seen it, I strongly, strongly recommend you to watch it. And the amazing thing about Jackie, the movie, is that it is about probably the most iconic figure in US history in the 20th century, or maybe ever, Jackie Kennedy. And the film is directed by a Latin American individual, by Pablo Larraín from Chile. And it's a movie that no one dared make. If you haven't seen it, it's just the days that elapsed between the assassination and the burial. It's the funeral. It's those 9 days. And no one wanted to touch that movie, and then someone from Latin America came and did an amazing job. So that's who we are. And I'm very proud, and so should you be. And we're going to get to know a little more about the region in the next few hours. Let me just say a few words about the economic background for Latin America, where I'm going to focus a little bit on Mexico, because of all the countries, it's the one that is in the news, right? Because of the new American, the new U.S. administration. So one key question is what's going to happen to NAFTA, and we don't know what's going to happen to NAFTA. But let me just give you some facts which are interesting. If NAFTA were not to exist, let me just back off for a second. Mexico exports to the U.S. about $270 billion per year, and the U.S. about $210 billion to Mexico. And there is a deficit from the U.S. point of view of $60 billion, which has captured the imagination of some people that don't quite understand the way international trade works. But anyway, if NAFTA were not to exist, out of everything that Mexico exports to the U.S., automatically 40% would still enter the U.S. with 0 tariffs. Why? Because the U.S. levies 0 duties on 40% of those categories of goods. The other 40% of U.S. exports of Mexican exports to the U.S. would enter with tariffs between 0 and 5%. So even if NAFTA didn't exist, the trade between the two nations would be immense, and there would be very little impediment. It turns out that it is pick-up trucks, the one that today there's an intense, very, very large amount of pickup trucks that are exported from Mexico to the US, that if NAFTA does not exist, could not be exported. So basically, people in the middle of America, in the red states, that drive pickup trucks would have to pay 20, 30% more for their pickup trucks if there is no NAFTA. That's what would happen. And we have to understand what are the consequences of these policies. Another problem that Mexico is facing, and that we may talk when we have our discussion this afternoon on the economic background and the challenges, is that the Mexican peso has lost a lot of value. Okay? So if you have a Mexican relationship, and if you send money to, I don't know, your brother, your sister, your godson, your goddaughter, now you can send 1/2 the amount of dollars, and he or she will get the same number of pesos, right? But that has created a problem. And I was last week in Mexico with Agustin Carstens, the governor of the Bank of Mexico, and they are very concerned. And they think that it is a Trump effect, but we don't know. And one of the things that it's very important, as I emphasize to my students, is what happens to currency values. And the peso dollar rate was about 14 at the beginning of 2015, and now it's 21, and it hit 23. So that's very, very costly to some people, but it's beneficial for others. Let me end up with a very short discussion of populism. I often get phone calls from the media, from people from the press, and ask questions about a number of things. During the last few months, almost every call, and there are several per week, are about populism. And it turns out that many years ago, Rudy Dornbush, a past professor at Sloan in MIT, and I wrote a book on populism and a series of articles, which to my luck, I was lucky, they have become quite iconic. And I get calls about, tell me something about populism and what's going on in the world. Marianne Le Pen in France, the Italians, the Dutch, Brexit, what happened here in the US election, all of those questions about populism. And that may be the most important export from Latin America in some sense, but it's a very sad one. And what we did in that work with Dornbush, the MIT professor, and I, is we distinguish between 4 phases of populism. And a populist experience starts with deep dissatisfaction by the population with the economic conditions of the country. And that may be due to a crisis that is sudden and explosive, for instance, Argentina in 2001 and 2002, or it may be a slow simmering type of dissatisfaction that gets to a level that allows a very charismatic leader to step in and to develop a language, a rhetoric that pits the world into us and them, and blames them of all the ills of the nation. This charismatic leader, in general, skips all the traditional political institutions and addresses the masses directly. And he becomes, or she, Cristina Fernandez from Argentina, a woman also in that career, she becomes completely devoid, separated from the political parties and the institutions. And you can think of Chavez or Perón in Argentina, permanently addressing the people as if in campaign mode. I'm not referring to anyone in the US in particular. And this leader, then it's we against us. In Latin America, us was always the US, the multinationals, the International Monetary Fund, the empire. Now, that them in Russia was, again, the West. It's always a foreign group. It's we against them. And the third phase in populism is that the populist leader, with the support of the direct masses from these rallies, skipping many times the legislative process, implements a number of policies that in the very short run generate a positive result. And in the case of Latin America, it was growth and a spur of higher income. But that is not sustainable. And the fourth phase of the populist experience, again and again and again, is crisis, sorrow, and tears, where those that were supposed to benefit from the populist policies end up being hurt. And if we think of what's going on in the US, a protectionist approach is going to end up hurting the lower classes who today have access to all sorts of goods at very convenient prices because of the globalization of the economy. So let me then end by welcoming you all to the conference, congratulating the organizers, letting you know, or emphasizing or reminding you that there are lots of good hombres and good mujeres out there, many of them here in this room today, and that we should take advantage of all the opportunities that this amazing region offers us on the creative industry, the movie industry, entertainment, the sciences, education, manufacturing. We're going to have the former CEO of Embraer. I've been flying Embraer for the last 2 or 3 weeks. Everywhere I go, I take Embraer. So now you know that I've been taking short hops, though. Thank you so much for being here, and enjoy the conference.